Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, September 29th. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it is a nice, cool morning for a change. Unfortunately, that is due to Hurricane Helene coming through the Gulf Coast this past week. And I just want to say my heart and prayers go out to those people that sustained damage. There's still conflicting reports. Who would think that this is 2024? But I've seen the death toll anywhere from 11 to 60. Don't know exactly which one is true. I hope it's not the 60. But apparently the hurricane wreaked havoc not only in Florida, but Georgia and Tennessee. I saw a lot of flooding in Tennessee. So again, my heart and prayers go out to those people that sustained damage. It is something that you always think about when you live in the Gulf Coast. That's the chance that there could be a hurricane here. But enough about that. We did not get any rain at all. We were on the west side of Helene. And we need rain here badly because I'm watering every other day. We haven't had rain for a couple of weeks. But the cool weather has allowed me to get out and garden, and you can see in my camellia garden that I trimmed the tops of all of my camellias just to sort of shape them up a little. The Mexican petunias are still blooming nicely. They do close up every night. I happened to notice yesterday as I was closing my curtains in my bedroom, that window, that the flowers were all closed up. I like to keep my azaleas, my encore azaleas, a little floppy. I don't like them to be perfect spheres. But the camellias, I like to have at least a kind of a little bit of a, not necessarily spherical, but shaped, let's put it that way, and all the same size. The osmanthus or tea olives were also trimmed. They are particularly hard to trim. I have 4 of them. For one, they're high. They're about 6.5, 7 feet tall, but they have 2 views. You see them as you see now from the garden, and then you see them from the side looking out my den window. And trust me, when you see them from the side, you see stuff that you can't see from here or from the ground while you're trimming. So they're a pain because you have to trim the shrub as best as you can and then walk all the way around into the den and look and see if the top is flat or where it needs a little touch, and then go all the way around outside again. So you get a lot of exercise. By the way, the buds on these camellias are just all over the place, which is good. This is my high fragrance. It's a later camellia. Buds here. This is a no-name variety. It looks like the double Professor Sargent, except it's white. Every camellia back here is just loaded with buds, so we should have lots of camellias this year. The only one that's not quite up to the others was this one. It's only about 3 years old, and it's a yellow camellia. The only camellia here, the tops that I pruned off of my camellia plants, typically don't have buds, the very tippy top, with the exception of this one. This is the Professor Sargent, and it had buds all over the top of the camellia. So I lost a few trimming this one down, but I still have plenty on the side, so it'll still bloom. I don't know as if you can tell, but back there are 3 layers to this garden. There's the camellias in the front, then I have a hedge of ligustrum, and I try to keep that hedge of ligustrum trimmed to like a square or at least a flat topped shape. And then on the other side of the ligustrum hedge is pride of mobile azaleas, and I just kind of let them do their own thing and just sort of trim them so they don't block the view of the street. I did notice my figs have a lot on this one branch. They're not turning black yet, but I have them. And while we're here, the bananas need a little bit of trimming again, but they're looking really good. They've really spread this year. And the big news this week was I cleaned out my cycad, or cleaned up my cycad. It finally started sending out new growth. You may recall I told you all that the females, once when they send out their cones, which is that, they don't regenerate leaves, as can be witnessed. It's what, September 29th, and the new leaves are just coming. So the leaves that were on this plant were from last winter yet and still had a little bit of winter damage and were turning yellow and looking kind of yucky. So I trimmed them all off in readiness for this batch to come out, and hopefully these will harden off before this winter. But here you can see this was the last cone, and you still have some seeds there, and I think you can see in there the fruits of that cone are still very much in there. The front yard I worked on the most this last week, and I pretty much have it the way I want it to be. You can finally start to see I bought a very small Mediterranean fan palm to match the one that's there. So it's finally starting to rise above the aspidistra. You may say, well, it's kind of close to some of these other plants, and that is true, but when it gets taller, those other plants will do fine. The, what is this called? The cassia is doing nicely. You can see it doesn't have any buds yet. I have not had luck with cassias. Typically, they only last about 4 or 5 years with me, and then a hard frost kills them. Well, this one is the exception. It's doing well. That's the reason why I planted it so close to the palm. I didn't plan on it living all that long. On that cycad, you can see new growth. This cycad was a pup of the one that I showed you that I just trimmed back. It's probably about an 8 or 9-year-old pup, and it got moved 3 times before it finally found its spot. My sable miner is doing nicely. I do like the flower, flower stalks and the fruits on it. And unfortunately, we did lose a holly that was here. It was the same as that one. And this one is probably not long for this world, at least in that spot, because I had the pair of them. Well, once when one is gone, you can't have a pair anymore. And of course, as is always the case, I didn't remember the name of the one I bought. I think it had Sky in the name. It's not Sky Pencil, but it's another type of holly. In any event, I'm not going to be able to match it, so it's too nice to just yank out and kill. So I'm thinking of finding a spot for it somewhere where I can tuck it in my garden. I worked in the front yard, in the front of the fence, I should say, and planted dianthus. Planted them over here as well. I got a flat. Owls 5 and dime. If you have a local store that sells plants, like a mom and pop store, you will find that they may have 3-packs. And I think it was 3-pack for $1.35 or so. And if you buy a flat, you get a little bit of a discount. So I got a flat. These should last the year. We'll see if the drought doesn't get to them first. I do like the red. I wanted to get snapdragons like I've always had, but the snapdragons didn't look as nice. These I always like the color of. I did clean up one of my bananas by the street. I just took it out. It turned out there were the small banana that's sticking out here was tangled up with the other one. And so I had to make a decision of which one to keep. So I kept the smaller one because it was farther in the clump. And it'll probably, the one I cut down will probably come back. It just won't get very big this year. You can see all the fruits on my little crepe myrtle. The birds do love to pick through those fruits once when they open. Loropetalums are getting buds. In the backyard I have some flowers. I did spend a lot of time on the potager this week. Cleaned it up. I got rid of the air potato that was on the fence, and I trained my blackberries on the top of the fence. The blackberries were just sort of sprawling all over, so I've at least tried to contain them on the fence. And it looks good. I did buy some parsley and some dill and lettuce. This spindly looking stuff is marjoram. The reason why it's so spindly is I didn't keep after the wandering dude and it swallowed it up. However, it's still green, and so it will come back. And this, of course, is lemon balm. My lemongrass did really well here. So much so I had to cut some of it back so I could go out the front gate. And surprisingly, well, I guess not surprisingly enough, it is lemony. I cut that, and for a couple of days it smelled like lemon pledge out here. I did replant my tomatoes. I got some red chrysanthemums. And where I had the, what was it? Butterfly bush that had died, I put another lemongrass. That was, I had in a pot. And of course, when it wasn't watered, it died back quite severely, but it's coming back. So I had a free lemongrass, so I thought I would flank my gate with lemongrass for a year or so. Cut back my sage, and it's still coming up nicely. More lettuce, and I've got strawberries planted in both beds. I planted a row of strawberries, and the row kind of died out, but they came up elsewhere, so I'm letting them come up where they may. I did do a little decorating for fall to show the abundance of fall. I have to laugh. I see some of these shows where they show a fall abundance by hitting hundreds of pumpkins and putting them up and down the stairs. At my age, I want to keep the stairs clear. So you'll notice the pumpkins are up close to the house and in the corners. And actually, not to be wasteful, if I really did want to save the planet, these are little sugar pumpkins and could be turned into pumpkin pie, should I be so inclined. Bumblebees are working over the wandering dude. They do like those little flowers. In here, my Australian tree fern is still alive. That's about all you can say for it. It's starting to form a trunk. It's probably got about a 6 or 8 inch trunk now, which is good. This is its second year. I did plant some thyme. All of my thyme died when I didn't water the pots. And for some reason, I guess due to the heat, pretty much all of my rosemary died as well. This looks pitiful, but it's still green, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I cut the dead out of it, and hopefully it'll survive. If not, I'll plant another one. It'll grow. Here's a dianthus that I planted 2 years ago in this pot. Same color as what's in front of the fence. So it is possible for dianthus to survive our heat in the summer, and of course they'll take winter, the cold. You see here an agave. That was where the lemongrass was. And that agave was in the backyard growing in the grass underneath the urn with the big gray agave back there. I needed to rescue it from the grass. You don't want agaves to grow in the ground here in the south because they will get 6 foot tall and spread. And there's nothing worse of a surprise when you're wearing sandals to step into a clump of agaves and feel all those little needles. They will grow to the size of the pot. If you have them in a small pot, they'll stay small for years. So this one should get probably about twice that size, would be my guess. But we shall see. Be careful getting around this chair. The devil's trumpet, that's the name of it, Datura, is doing pretty well here. I see the seeds have broken open, the seed pods. I don't know if you can see them there and there, which is good because the seeds will drop down and hopefully we'll have hundreds of little daturas. These do come true to seed because I have had that experience in the past, although this one I bought. It is a double datura. This garden came together nicely, and then catastrophically my middle topiary just absolutely died. Don't know why. I watered it like the others, but that one just didn't survive. I did notice, I don't know if you can tell, satsumas are starting to turn, which is good. They'll get the orange color. Toad lilies in the front are sending out bud. My old group of toad lilies, I don't think they lived, but during the time when it wasn't being watered, they dried up quite badly, so I don't think they're going to bloom. I see this camellia has a few buds around the side, so I hope to enjoy it. It's the hardest one to get to bloom. It doesn't set bud at the top. I don't know where it doesn't set bud really anywhere for me, except around the side. Here you can see the yellow angel's trumpet, not blooming yet. It doesn't have any buds. This was the one that got defoliated in the summer. Here you can see why I got rid of the air potato out of the street, because there's a beetle, or bug I should say, that likes to eat these. And I've sprayed it with a natural spray. Not that I'm into that, but that happened to be what I was using. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it smells of like garlic. Neem oil. And it seems to do the trick, except you have to cover every surface. There's one of the little beetles right now. I call them lily beetles because that's what they look like to me. But there were hundreds of them, and I didn't want to spray the potager, so that was the reason why I decided to take it down. Again, lots of buds. Well, that's a leaf. There's a bud up there on my camellias. I'm looking forward to a good display. I did trim the top of that camellia. this week. We got the big things first back here. I've got to sit for a minute. Oh my goodness. I'll show you the views from here. You can see the pink. In there is another encore azalea. I'm letting my spider lilies go to seed. And in the corner you can see my Mandevilla is looking beautiful. Unfortunately, I have a pair of Mandevillas, and the other one not doing quite as well. So I'm going to have to try and find a Mandevilla to match, or at least something close. But this I'll be concentrating in the backyard this week, because the front yard's pretty much done. And I'll be buying some new... There's one of the kittens. And that's the one that likes to eat my equisetum or horsetail. I was wondering why my horsetails aren't growing. And I happened to be sitting back having some iced tea. And lo and behold, that cat was chewing on my equisetum. But you can't kill the equisetum, so it'll come back. Back in here, all's looking well. The presence of the cats and their fathers back here as well, I think, is keeping other wild animals at bay, because we still haven't had a lot of rain, but no wild animals have been coming in and using my water baths. That fern is doing well. That's the one that's the Kimberly fern that I dug up from the front yard, little bits and pieces. All we did, I think Sarah did, it was her fern. She just plopped it for the winter on the ground, and we forgot about it for a year or so, and it just absolutely spread to the ground and kept going ever since. Again, you can see some of the satsumas are starting to turn orange. None of the cats are tame yet, but they'll get there. Here are some of the toad lilies in bloom. My ligularia, this one is doing better. That one is the younger one. It's only, I think, a year old. That one, unfortunately, they move. And it's moving towards the little palm. And so it's getting smothered up by the little palm. This was one of the major things we did this week, was limb up the Serenoan rapine, so now you can walk around it without getting smacked in the face. The bad thing about this is the points aren't sharp, but if you look at the ridges, that's like a saw. And especially for an old person like me with weak skin, if you accidentally brush against it, it will actually slice into the skin. Not a good thing, so you have to be particular. I did get some strawberries for the top of my strawberry pot. I may get one or two more just to stick in the sides. This whole pot died. Again, a pair. That pot did better. So I need to flush this one out again with strawberries. Kumquats are starting to turn orange, just in time for Christmas. Of course, this was the spot where we dug out the agave for the front yard, and we shaped and cleaned up the old one. Shaping usually just involves taking off the most leaves, because they tend to be the ones that are most damaged. My white angel's trumpet is doing well. It got a little burned. If it gets dry, sometimes that's what the flowers will do. They'll have the little brown edges. So I have to be careful to keep it watered. The original autumn carnation azaleas are back there. That's the first 4 that I bought. No, I take that back. That's the first 4 in the backyard. The ones in the camellia garden were the first ones that I bought. I did clean up the star jasmine topiaries. I had let them get away from me, and boy did they get away from me. They actually grew. I had I'd say about a half a garbage bag full of just the stems from where they stretched way off into the ligustrum. Not ligustrum, into the nandinus. Got to clean the rest of it up yet, but I'm just starting at the big stuff in the backyard. Next week you'll see a big difference. And wonder of wonder, miracle of miracles, deep pink angel's trumpet finally bloomed. That was one of the other things I had to deal with this week. They got really tall, and because of the drought, those branches actually splayed out on the ground. They were just absolutely flattened. And so I had to figure, and they're heavy branches, so I had to figure out some way to stake them up. And I at first got my crowbar, which hasn't had a lot of use recently. Not in about 15, 20 years. So I went ahead and used it as a stake and staked a couple of them to that. And then I wound up getting some galvanized pipe, 10-foot section cut in half to stake up the others, and that was heavy enough if you bang it in the ground far enough that it can actually take the weight of the plants. Back in here all is well. Something's been eating, probably horse lovers. They like to get inside these little swirls of leaves and then eat them. Doesn't hurt the plant any, but doesn't look good. Needless to say, I need to clean these areas up yet, but they'll get there. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention. I have a new smell in the backyard. Yay! The loquats are starting to bloom. This is the time of the year for loquat blossoms. They're insignificant. They kind of look like a strawberry blossom, but they are very fragrant. And when the whole tree goes into blossom, it can be a little overpowering. There you can see I got my fountains going. I will be putting some color back here, some chrysanthemums and some other things. But we had to start somewhere, so I started with the big stuff. Trimming the tops of the azaleas, sort of getting them into shape, and fighting the wandering dude. It's amazing how that stuff overwhelms the monkey grass. Well, here you can see, here's a batch that I haven't dealt with yet. Main reason being is I thought I might want to multiply it, and I need to know that before I break it off and throw it out. This particular topiary got repotted. For some reason it listed to one side and needed to be straightened, so we popped it out of the pot. I needed 2 people for that. It's not very heavy, but you can't do it all at the same time. Lifted it out of the pot and then tucked some dirt in under it and around it to straighten it. Up here, the loropetalum are blooming, starting to bloom. They do give a lot. I can't recommend enough putting loropetalum in a pot because nice color. They are evergreen or ever purple, depending on how much sun they get. And they bloom now as well as in the spring. I did notice I'm getting some little bitty buds on my chalice plant. Unfortunately, I broke one off while I was trimming the top of the loropetalum. My papyrus, still doing well. I did get some more of the thyme. I like thyme, and like I told you before, it all died back. And here is my tarragon. It's coming back. It died back. My Nepenthes is still sending out new growth. And again, the lower pedalum in the corner. Here's the poor equisetum. I think I may have to put some wire around it because they're getting smaller and smaller. I did plant a new rosemary back in here. It used to be a huge rosemary plant, and it just, again, catastrophically died. Don't know why. But now, roses are still doing well. Everything is really doing nicely. I had to get a new hummingbird feeder. The old one just broke, and I was sitting here just like this on the deck, and a hummingbird kept buzzing over my head, and I'm wondering why. I just put food out there. I noticed it had a broken feeder, so I had to buy a new feeder. So most of the things I did this week pertain to where I'm sitting now. The top of that azalea, back in there. I also limbed up the palm over there, and the other camellias over there. Oh, I may have called that an azalea. That was a camellia over there. And the top of this camellia arch, you really can't see it all that well because of the umbrella. But that's kind of how I start. You kind of have to start somewhere. When the whole garden has gotten away from you, you kind of have to prioritize what you want to do first. And since I spend most time sitting in this chair when I'm relaxing, I wanted everything from this chair to look good, so that's where I started. But we shall get around to everything else this week, hopefully. And yeah, that's about it for the week. It's been pleasant. It's still cool, although, to be truthful, I have a little bit of perspiration. Unbeknownst to you, that I had to do 2 videos this morning. I got to about 25 minutes, and for some reason, I guess I ran out of storage on the phone, but that video stopped. So this is actually the second video of the day, which is why you hear me clearing my throat every now and then. I'm not used to talking for an hour long. I used to be able to do that, but not anymore. But I'll leave you with a view of the banana trees. I did cut quite a lot of the dead off of them. They're looking quite spectacular. So I hope you all get to enjoy your gardens this week. And for those of you affected by the floods and the storm, Helene, again, my thoughts and prayers go out to you. And I'll see you next week.